So we're sitting here in the afternoon after a lunch and some great sessions, and Jolee Crosby, who is the CEO of Swiss Re for Canada and English Caribbean, let's get that right, is joining us here. And Jolee, thanks for coming on and sitting down with the Insurance Podcast and NICC today.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. It's my first NICC, and I am just so impressed with the caliber of speakers,
Isn't it great?
The topics, seeing everyone, the vibe. It's my understanding this is the second time post that event that we don't want to talk about.
It's like
happened.
the Voldemort of
Exactly.
medical or whatever issues we want to call it. Yes, that event. So obviously, great time. First time in Montreal?
Yes, it's really good. Oh no, it's my second time.
Second time. Okay, so you're familiar.
But I love it, and the weather's great. I've been told, I'm new to Canada, I've been told that the weather's always this way, 365 days out of the year.
Yeah, especially in the middle of January.
Yeah.
So aside from weather, but weather is a great segue to talk about some of the things that we're dealing with when it comes to insurance and loss and how reinsurance comes into play in things. Because as I've said before on the podcast to many of the guests, at no point in my 21-year career in insurance have I ever talked about reinsurance or talked to as many reinsurers as I've had in the last 3 years. What issues do you see as paramount for continued, success and capacity for reinsurers? Like, obviously, we're all crossing our fingers for no more weather events, but what are some of the things that you're seeing from Swiss Re's point of view?
So, first of all, it's interesting that you say that reinsurance has all of a sudden become important, because for the first time in my career, I don't have to explain what a reinsurer is.
Yeah.
People used to be, what's a reinsurer? I'm like, well, we're the insurance company for the insurance companies. Yeah. And so that is really nice, because if you think about what reinsurance is meant for, it's to help companies avoid shock losses.
Exactly.
And if you even think about some of the biggest events that have happened over the last 100 years, insurance has been behind it, because it's understood that while insurance companies' balance sheets can handle the normal run-of-the-mill sorts of claims, but there's always these shock events, a nat cat event, a hurricane, that could really jeopardize the standing of an insurance company. And then that has a ripple effect, obviously, on society. So that's where the insurance company comes in. And one of the key things that has struck me so much about Canada is all of the nat cat activity. We've had record wildfires.
Yes.
We've had Hurricane Ian that just skirted by. We've had Tropical Storm Ophelia. There's always the infamous potential for an earthquake.
Yes.
So Canada has all of these nat cats that really jeopardize or go to those shock loss events that really could jeopardize the system. And that's where reinsurance comes in.
Right, and you say shock events, but with the frequency of forest fires, with the frequency of hurricanes now, and the frequency of flood, are we really considering them shocks, or is this something reinsurance have to say, this is part of the new environment that we operate in?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and what I would say is reinsurers, our balance sheets aren't meant to handle what we call attritional losses, frequency.
Yes.
Now, you're right about wildfires. They're hard to model. They happen, they're normally, we used to be not particularly high severity, but and frequency used to not be particularly high. That's changing, I think. And so to your point, I think that is the new normal, possibly.
It is a possible new normal. We just need a little more trend line to figure out if this is what it is.
Exactly.
And that's a little concerning, because if it is the new normal, you make a really good point. Your balance sheets aren't designed to withstand repetitive losses of that scale. And on the reinsurance side, if you take all the major reinsurers together, is this something that reinsurers talk about and go, what do we do long term if this is reality? Is that a conversation point?
It is, and if you look at Monte Carlo, which just happened last week or the week before, all of the big four reinsurers, CEOs, were talking about exactly that. Because over the last, I'd say 5-6 years, there's been so much capital that has come into the market that we found ourselves where, we were getting into those lower layers and we were attaching for more of those frequency covers, and that's not what we're meant for. And if you look at our balance sheets, the capitalization has deteriorated over the last few years. And so we're now in a position where there weren't the returns from the reinsurers or private equity. And so now capital has retracted from the industry, and that's what's created the hard market.
Private equity is a funny thing because it has funded a lot of reinsurance around the globe and stuff. And private equity moves quickly. It moves viciously. It's without mercy when it does move. Is that a fear part for reinsurance long term too? That private equity doesn't believe in the reinsurance model that it maybe has traditionally had a stake in?
At its core, reinsurance and insurance is a relationship business.
Yes, it is.
Even though we talk about it being a business, and it is, it's a relationship business. One of the things that I hold true about Swiss Re, and I've been with Swiss Re for 25 years in all sorts of roles, is that Swiss Re has been around for over 150 years. And when companies choose who they want as a reinsurer, and Swiss Re is not alone, there's others as well that are very good. Right. There needs to be some of that stability. And that's one of the, so if you ask me, am I worried about private equity? No. It's a form of capital that can come into the market. But reinsurance and the companies that have been around for a long time will always be here, and we're kind of the backbone.
You are the backbone. It's good to know that you have a backbone for the climate that we're in right now when it comes to losses and frequency. Now, with that, obviously losses and frequency bring a lot of things like data. What are some of the trends that your data and analytics are telling you that are concerning? And are there areas where it's improved for the different strategies and stuff improve the outcome for reinsurers? Can you share anything on that front?
Yeah, so it's an area that we continue to invest a lot in, and especially on the NatCat modeling and flood in particular, looking at helping our clients to understand floodplains as well as exposures. That's some of the data analytics that help clients to appropriately price. And then that's what, again, leads to a sustainable industry, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is this balance of having prices low enough that consumers can buy the insurance to really provide the resiliency that you need, but it also has to be enough so that it doesn't undermine the stability of the insurance industry. So that's where we really focus our data analytics, is to help with the modeling to understand the risk so that then the pricing can be appropriate.
There you go. It all comes down to pricing, because this pricing has to be sustainable all through the ecosystem.
Exactly.
When enough people don't or cannot afford insurance and large losses happen, it's priced into your taxation anyways, because it's the governments who will have to step in. And that's part of the part with insurance I think a lot of consumers don't understand. And we know how, and I'm speaking more of you have a much more international view of the situation, but I'm speaking in Canada is, we have some very different beliefs on taxation about what government should intervene on, and there's a lot of people who feel they should be a backstop. It's not always affordable to them. No. They're all running deficits anyways. It can't always go back to the government. And sustainability of a pricing that is fair and addresses the issues is paramount to long-term success.
And if you look at Florida, and I have a son that lives in Florida, he owns his first house, a townhouse. Was really proud of him for being off the family payroll.
I'm so jealous.
Yeah. But between his insurance costs, and it was the insurance costs mainly that went up, and then his property insurance too went up. So homeowners insurance and property insurance, his house payment went up $800 a month.
Wow.
And for a 24-year-old, that's a lot of money.
That's a huge amount of money.
And then when you think about how California, you've had some big insurers that have said we're no longer writing in California. The same thing's happened in Florida. And what has happened is then you've had to create this backstop, but the backstop's not any cheaper. And that is one of the misnomers, I think, that comes about, is you think, oh, well, if a government puts a program together, it's going to be a cheaper program. And that's not necessarily the case.
No. I speak as someone who's been through government flood intervention for a number of times in the province of Manitoba, I've consulted with government on some of those things. The last entity you want in there is government dealing with insurance, because they don't have the expertise or the resources to do it the way it should properly be done. And it creates headaches down the road that you don't want. And that's not to say they shouldn't have a role in it, but it should not be implementing insurance products.
I think you're right on the resources in particular.
Yeah.
Because I have seen really good expertise, but it's so difficult to get things done.
Yes.
Because you don't have the resources available.
They're very good at helping with the top end, but when it's the implementation of getting people back to where they were immediately prior to the loss, very difficult, because that's not their core role. And that's where you need the help of industry to do it, because that is the purpose of insurers and reinsurers, is to move that capital through and find those resources. So segueing on here, what can insurers and their key partners do to help keep reinsurance accessible and sustainable? What do we need to practice in the future, Jolee? Because we know things are tight, and we want to get out of that. And obviously, if we can't control some of the things that are affecting loss ratios and cat events and shock losses, what can we do to help manage our side of the equation going forward?
Yeah, so I think there are a number of things that can be done and that are being done. Full disclosure,
great.
There's some really good collaboration. It can take the place of everything from how things are built. So using fire retardant products when you're building a house, having appropriate floodplains, and not building in floodplains. All of those things prevent losses from occurring even when a NatCat event happens, and they will happen. So if we can prevent some of that, that's helpful. Then of course, an insurance company continuing to price risks appropriately, understanding their exposures, and then also the operations piece, so that it continues to behave in a very routine, understandable way where you don't have the shock losses. Then it makes it a lot easier for the reinsurer. And if I can have any advice, and I'm an American, so I can say this, let's avoid all of the problems in America around social inflation, out of crazy jury verdicts. Let's avoid that in Canada, and that will be helpful too.
And at that point, we will say thank you, because let's take the advice and not trip it up, because that's good advice. Jolee, thanks so much for stopping by. Hope you have a wonderful time tonight. There's a big gala dinner coming on. And just actually, before you go, anything you're excited about meeting, or people you're excited about meeting and seeing in sessions this afternoon and further on tomorrow?
So I have loved the sessions. Tomorrow, Jerome Hegley is the chief economist at Swiss Re. I've heard him speak a bunch before. He's fabulous. We've got Jean-Jacques Henshaw from Hanover Re, former Swiss Re person, who's wonderful as well. Great panel of global leaders. So I'm looking forward to that. And then if I could give a plug for a panel that I'm on as well.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to it. So great event. I've enjoyed our conversation as well.
Well, thank you. Look forward to catching up with you in the future, and thanks so much for coming to NICC.
Thank you.